Hey, I'm Mark,
And I'm Chris.
and we're the leftovers.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
I did not agree to that.
Hey, Chris,
Hey,
got a question for you.
what would that be?
Okay, so if you go to the library and you're looking for something, what would you be looking at the library? Looking for?
Books.
Books. Exactly. What do all of them have in common?
Authors.
And titles. We're looking for titles. That's something on my mind. I'm sure it was on yours too, or we wouldn't be talking about it. All books have a title. So when you go to a library looking for a book and you're thinking, what will it be this week? Because I know you read a book a week. So we're thinking, what would this week, what would I be looking for? You know, maybe something funny, maybe something romantic, maybe something that's going to show you a skill or a trade. These are things that you can find in a library. But all of these things have a what?
Title.
Title. Exactly. So, doing just a little research, not a whole lot, because I like this to be a conversation, right? I found out children's books, because we both have children.
And that's where my reading level stops.
That's where it stops. It stopped. Hey, at least it's a level, right?
It starts and stops at children's books.
Hey, it works. So there is a children's book called The Very Hungry Caterpillar. You ever heard of it?
I used to read that when I was a kid.
Did you now?
Well, my mom read it to me, and then I read it.
That's awesome. 'Cause I'd never heard of it.
You've never heard of that book?
Well, I'm not saying I've never heard. I am saying I've never heard of it as of this moment. That doesn't mean I didn't know about it then. Apparently, this book was published 1969, prior to me being born, way prior to you being born. And what I read about this book is one is sold somewhere in the world every 30 seconds.
That is a lot of books.
It's a lot of books. It's been translated in 62 languages. 62 languages. You didn't know there were 62 languages, did you?
I figured there was a lot. I didn't know
Just
about 62.
62 languages for this one book. But when you think about the book, The Very Hungry, and apparently you know more about it than I do, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, what comes to mind? When you hear the title of the book, what comes to mind?
The caterpillar and how it looks. That book is just it's so memorable to me. I read it when I was a kid. Just the picture of the caterpillar sitting on the leaf.
And apparently it was very
Hungry.
Do you know the number one seller in the past 60 years? Number one seller. I'm going to guess you know it.
The Bible. but I'm
Ding,
not-
ding, ding. The Bible. Number one seller, adult book. Children's
Adult
book.
book.
Adult book. Reading materials. So, let's ask ourselves this question. So, we go to the library to get a book. You see the cover, check out how many pages it has. Most importantly, the title. This is going to tell you what you're in for. So if you walk up to a book and it says, I hate Chris, probably not going to check it out.
Well, I mean, yeah, that popular show a couple years ago, Everybody Hates Chris.
That is a thing. Maybe there's a book on it.
I hope not.
Could be.
Could be.
Everybody. That's even worse. That's not I hate Chris. That's everybody.
everybody.
That'd be kind of sad if your name was Chris.
Hey,
And yours is. So, the title of the
book.
tells you what you're in for. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
Whether it's nonfiction, fiction, maybe, whether it's illustrated or not. Is that in the title? No. You're going to have to open it up to figure that out. I'm going to guess you like the illustrated. Whether it piques your interest, I think it's all in the
Title.
title, correct? So, title, to identify or describe something. Title. That could be books, songs, jobs. These are all titles. So when you think of a song now, to me, the way I looked at this, a song, you get the usually you get the content before you get the title. On a book, you get the title before you get the content. Do you agree to that? So if you're listening to the radio like old people used to do, and you've got a song, and you're snapping to it, and you've heard it 3 or 4 times, and you're like, hey, I want to go down to the local record store and get me a record. After you've heard it a few times, the very first time you heard it, you probably care less what the name of the song was. So it takes you a few times, and you're like, okay, I want to know the name of that song. I want to know a few more words to it. Or you'd be like me and screw up every song you heard when you was a kid, putting in lyrics that not even close. Yeah. So would you agree, when you go to the library to check out a book, you're looking at the title, and then you're getting the content?
Yes.
And on a song, most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, you're going to get the content before you get the title.
Yes.
Okay. So we're on the same page. So, again, today we're talking about
Titles.
And so I think people have those as well.
Yes.
Not just books, not just songs, not just jobs, but people have titles. Now, how we receive them, that's kind of where we're going to steer to today. Although we don't know. This thing ain't scripted. We're just rocking and rolling, doing what we do, talking about what we talk about. So we all have titles. I'm going to guess that, well, I know one of your titles is Father, and you appreciate that title.
Yes, very much so.
To me, I have that title as well, and I enjoy it. I think it's an honor to be labeled Father. I'm guessing, I don't put words in your mouth, that you would agree with that as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I want you to think about something.
Okay.
If a guy gets a lady pregnant, she has a child, he never sees it, he never has a connection with it, he never has a relationship, does he have the same title?
That's a hard question.
It's true. That's why they hired me. And by they, I mean us.
Us, yeah.
And by hired, I mean it's free. So if a guy never has a relationship, maybe he never even saw it, does he have the title Father?
I don't know about father. Maybe, I don't know.
Dad? No.
Yeah, just because a lot of times you think about a dad, you think of someone that's there with you all the time. And then you think of a father, because you can have a father figure.
Father figure. Mm-hmm.
That's not always around, but that's a hard question to answer.
I think by asking this other question, it sort of answers that question. Not sure. It's just where I'm at. So, the opposite of a father is
Mother.
So, that's a title
Yes.
that you or I, either one, aren't.
Correct.
Mothers. Now, mother to me is a title you can't get away from. You can't escape it like a father can escape the title Father. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
Because that connection with the child is there regardless. If they never see it, if they give it up for adoption, never held its hand, never had a relationship, still mother. So why is father not always father?
Because in today's age,
What you say?
okay, in any age, it's like
There you go.
the fathers felt like it was so easy. They could just get up and run. And they don't technically have to be the dad or father. And that's where you have stepdad or stepmom is dad and father figure too different, because you can have a stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would say stepfather, but not a lot of people say that these days.
I think it just shows more respect. I don't know why, but I just do.
Stepdad?
Father just sounds more regal.
I guess you could say that, but
I just did.
a dad is, in my eyes, is the person that's there with you through all the little things,
About
takes care of you.
pops.
That's just a name.
So pops. What do you think about that? Is that a title?
It's a name.
It's a title, right? You don't look at that as a title? Father, dad,
I think there's
pops,
a difference between a title and a name.
Henry.
There's a difference between a title and a name.
Oh, yes. But pops is not a name. Could be.
What you call somebody.
Pops.
Yeah.
Still a title. Thinking of an older guy. Anyway, so the connection between the title, mother, father, coming together to make a child, do they not always own that title? Regardless, maybe they have a lifelong relationship with the child. Maybe they don't have one at all. I don't know. That's why we're asking these difficult questions. Titles.
There's plenty of men out there that try to get away from the title of father, but
True. But
there's plenty of women that try to get away from the title of mother as well.
do you think, though, that they always have those titles, regardless if they try to get away from it or try to stay with it?
Yeah, I mean, once you have a child, you are a father and or mother.
I agree with that.
You can't get away from it. You can pretend it's not there, but it's there.
This is true. Okay. So, Chris, I was thinking, which titles do we submit to? It's a big question there. Because we submit to some of our titles. Others titles we're like, yeah, I'm not going with that. So we said,
So
your father.
So when you say submitting to a title, titles that we take on.
yes, we grasp, we want, we hold. It's ours. It's a label we desire to have. Submit. We're giving in to that name. That's one that I'll go. You just said, I said, Father, you would be like, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that will take the title of father, but not necessarily everybody.
No.
Just
And
like there's people out there all the time that want to take the title of being a Christian, but do they really act like a Christian? Do they really believe in the teachings of Christianity? Do you get what I'm saying?
There's also a title called a judge. There's a fine line of, like you just mentioned, if someone takes on the title of I'm a Christian and someone else sees that they aren't wearing the title very well, and that person is like maybe behind their back, which ought not be that way, or in their face and be like, you're doing this, that, and the other, and maybe you don't say anything. Maybe you just keep it in your own mind. And it's like, yeah, they're not wearing that title very well. Well, then there's a title called a judge as well. So are you not judging that person for their actions or them not wearing their title correctly?
Whenever I look at a judge is telling somebody their sentence or their punishment. They say whether they're guilty or not. Just because someone says that they're Christian or not, it's not for me to say whether they're going to heaven or hell. That's not for me to judge because I'm not around them all the time. I can just see what they do out in public. So when I think of a judge, it's not somebody that is just saying, you're not a good enough Christian, or it's someone saying, this is your sentence. You're going to heaven or you're going to hell. But I guess that's looking at it from the American judicial system way, where we have a jury of people, majority of the time, that tell you whether or not you're guilty or innocent. Whereas in other countries, I guess the judge does say whether or not you're innocent or guilty.
Yes.
So I guess I have to change my view on this of yes, that is a judge.
As Fonzie would say, correctamundo. Who's Fonzie, right?
I don't know who Fonzie
There
is.
you go. Knew you knew who Fonzie was. All right, so some titles were given. We are given, and we submit to. We're like, yes, I want to be that one, and I want to be that one. So many times these titles are just and well-founded. They're like, yeah, I'll agree to that. Sure, yeah, I'm one of those. But at times, they're just wrong. And they're unfounded, and they're not necessary. Maybe they're said behind our backs. Maybe they're said to our face. Maybe they're put out in the public. That Chris is a so-and-so. That Mark,
Don't call me a so-and-so.
Don't call me a so-and-so. So I'm going to look at the other side of titles. And so the title, that's a word. The title, and I'll start light, and then I'll work my way down the list. So the title of a liar. Someone has the title of a liar. It's not a good title. It's not something people's waving or call me that. I want to be known as a liar. That's me. I'm the liar. No, that's not a good title. It's not something you want to be known as for sure. But if someone has that title, all right, how do you walk away from that? How do you all of a sudden become, well, he's not a liar anymore? Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's something that person has that they don't even realize they're doing it. How do you get away from that?
I mean, can you really get away from that? That's a good question, because I hear all the time about, like, can someone not be labeled something even after they've quit doing it?
Exactly.
It's like a felon is someone who's been
a liar. We're stick to the liar.
I don't want to stick to liar.
We're light. We're light on the list, and then we'll get down to where
you just don't want me to take your thunder from your.
We're getting to where you're at. I'm just thinking, how does a quote unquote liar get away from that title? How do they get away from that? I guess you stop lying. I mean, that would be a good place to start. I mean, if you were known as a speeder in the eyes of the law and you quit speeding, you would no longer be known as a speeder, right?
Yeah, but that just because in the eyes of the law doesn't mean society.
I use that because
I know titles come from many different directions and many different spaces, and so it all just depends on what titles you like.
Okay,
which titles mean the most to you?
We're working around our 100 people, employees here. 100 of us ish, maybe a little more. 100 of us, and 99% of the 100 knows this one person likes to stretch the truth, and they've been labeled a liar. So how does that person get away from that label? Again, I think you start with stop lying, but if a person's maybe unaware of what they're doing on a regular basis, and it's just a habit they're doing, unless someone says, hey, liar, not sure they're going to do that. Hey, man, if you don't mind, quit stretching the truth. We know you didn't climb the Empire State Building. We know that. You don't have to tell us you did, because you didn't.
I did.
Well, besides you, that other guy.
I didn't climb it outside, but I climbed it.
Okay. So the liar thing, we'll hold on to that for a minute. Just hold it right here.
That's right. It's right here.
It's right over here. So if someone was a cheater, they cheated at everything they did. Not everything. A lot of things they did. It was just the idea that they're going to cheat. Okay, you're playing Monopoly. Go ahead and say it. What's Monopoly?
Oh, I know what Monopoly is. No one wants to play with me anymore because I take it too serious.
Well, you got to win.
You play a game to win. It's not just playing for the fun. You
No.
play to win.
You play to win. Everybody doesn't get a trophy. You're selling your Park Place if I'm playing. Okay? You're selling it.
I'm
You're
not selling
it.
Park Place.
We'll fight over it. You're going to sell it.
We will fight over it. I ain't selling it to you.
All right. So if we're playing Monopoly
Okay.
and you seen me slide a couple of hundreds out of the bank and under the table and into my stack, you're going to label me.
You're going to meet Bill Goldberg is what you're going to meet. You're going to meet a hard end of a spear.
You're going to label me. And maybe you won't the first time. But then when we're playing Sorry or we're playing
Poker.
Rook, Rook,
I haven't played that in forever.
and you saw me cheating again and again and again, now all of a sudden I'm going to get a label.
You're labeled as a cheater.
Exactly. Now, how do I get away from that? That may seem lighthearted to say, that Mark's a cheater. He's cheated at Rook, Monopoly, Poker, Sorry, Risk, Battleship.
But that all goes
cheat
back
it.
to
I did cheat it. Battleship one time. Me and my mother was playing, the little, you open the little
Yes,
thing
I
up.
know what Battleship
You
is.
set your things. So we were playing. She was sitting in front of me at the bar, but at the end of the bar
It was a mirror.
was a television.
Ah.
It was cut off, so it acted
it was like
as
a
a mirror. Now I couldn't see exactly C4 was a ship, but I could get a good idea out of that. And if someone wears glasses playing cards or something, you can see their cards through the glasses. All right, so I am saying I did do that. That was cheating.
You cheater.
Exactly. You've labeled me. Now I've told everybody I've cheated.
Okay, but can
That's
I,
lighthearted.
that is lighthearted. But that's I want to start off with this being lighthearted. It's the the titles or labels that you care about. Because there's people out there that would not care one iota being called a cheater or a liar.
I wonder.
There are plenty of people out there that
That would matter.
that would matter, like
I think it matters who it's coming from.
that as well. Because if it's coming from somebody that you really respect,
The
their
100 you work
opinion,
around every day.
someone you do a podcast with, I mean,
It's a thing.
but
I think a lot of it is where it comes from
correct.
versus what the title actually is.
But
I mean, if I called you a scallywag and I meant it, that would hurt your feelings.
what is a scallywag?
Not real sure.
You scallywag! You just heard it and thought it was funny.
But I imagine it's where it comes from.
Yeah.
If your wife give you a label that you didn't like very good, it's going to hurt more than a coworker that you see 8 hours a day.
Yeah, because
You don't have to go home with them.
yeah, I don't sleep with them.
No, we hope not. So, so we're getting a little deeper on the list. If someone is titled adulterer, that's a big deal. That's kind of like cheater, but it's a little deeper.
What depends on. There's a lot of people that would just call an adulterer a cheater, but cheater of a different way.
I think cheater, though, to me, lets the person off the hook just a little. Because you can cheat at Monopoly. You can't at Monopoly. Adulterer
As far as you think.
in Monopoly. That I know of. I've never played that way. You see,
But,
I
yeah,
think it kind of makes it a
I
little.
understand what you're saying. I'm just coming at
Titles.
it from. Yes. I'm just coming at it from a person from everyday that would.
Everyday life. That's what we
Everyday
all
life.
are. That's what we all are.
And the majority of the time when someone.
You old cheater. You see?
Oh, yeah, it makes plenty of sense. Adulterer
I like that better.
has that.
Yeah.
that connotation.
Yes. Exactly.
Whereas cheater,
Makes it a little lighter,
Yeah.
cute. And
Makes sense.
there's nothing cute about that title.
Nope.
If someone has that title, how do you get away from that? Because you do that one time, you could be labeled that the rest of your life,
yeah.
right?
Because when you're adulter, it's a lot less lighthearted than taking 100 Monopoly dollars. Because
Yes.
in the scheme of things, no, that game of Monopoly doesn't mean a thing in the world other than hurting somebody's feelings because they didn't win. Whereas you cheat on a partner, whether it's a wife or a girlfriend, that's somebody you are in a
Serious relationship.
relationship with.
Yeah. And you've hurt them maybe forever.
Yeah.
You may have scarred them forever. You may have scarred yourself. The other person, there's a lot of connecting pieces there. But you could be labeled that forever. And the other one I was going to get to, if you kill someone and you get the label,
Murder.
does that label, title, does that stay with you the rest of your life on this earth? Are you always going to be labeled that or no?
Yeah. In today's society, yeah. Unless you go somewhere where no one knows you and they don't know that you murdered somebody, but technically you still have that label. You have murdered somebody.
Okay. When does the family you affected rid you of that title? If ever. Maybe when they start to heal, I think maybe they will always have you in their mind as murderer, I think.
Yeah, because it's that whole forgive and forget. You can forgive somebody without forgetting. You can forgive somebody for murdering your wife, your mom, your sister, your brother, your dad.
Your dog.
Your dog. You can forgive somebody for that. But that doesn't mean you forget.
Right. Unless you're old.
Well, unless you have dementia.
You just forget. But, okay. So the family affected is probably going to stay around longer. What about the family of the killer themselves, murderer themselves? When does that title leave their minds? Or first off, leave the mouth? When do they no longer say, my little Johnny is a murderer? When do they say it's just my little Johnny now?
I don't think it ever goes away.
That's stretching it, but you get the idea.
I get the idea, but there's some titles, in my opinion, that don't go away. Like murder. Like felon.
I had it, same. I had it listed like affected family, present family, John Q. Public, whatever that means. When, in that order, when does that title of convicted felon leave those people's minds or mouths? Mouth first, then mind. And it would work in reverse order that. John Q. Public is going to forget about it first. Hopefully your immediate family next. Affected family on down the road, if ever. And maybe if ever on all of those. I don't know. Maybe we hold some titles forever on this earth.
Like president. In the United States. Once you were a president, you're still considered president.
That's true.
Trump hasn't been president in 3 years now. They still call him President Trump.
President Obama, President Clinton, President Bush.
They're
They're all still presidents.
Some people still call Biden Vice President Biden.
So,
no matter what your political leaning is.
When we realize we have a title that's been given us that maybe is not so good, maybe it's lazy, Maybe somebody called you lazy.
My wife.
I think that not so much the title as much as it is the deliverer.
Not only the deliverer, but also the connotations to it.
Well, it could be a joke.
Meanings.
You know, you lazy Chris, you old lazy Chris. What if it's a serious,
Yes.
that boy's lazy. You see, there's a difference.
Yeah.
So one, you're just gonna walk away from. It's not a big deal. The other side of it, though, hey, it's kind of hurtful, you know. So I think we need to be careful of how we label people, title people, if you will, when it comes to that kind of thing, because to me, giving someone a title that may include lazy or ugly or, you know, whatever you want to call somebody, I think that's very dangerous, because, you know, there's one finger pointing at them and three pointing right back at you.
Unless you point like this.
You could look weird and put your whole hand out toward them. Like,
Listen here.
That person over there. Yeah. I think titles that we give out, we're talking about titles we're getting. What about ones that we're giving out? You know, of course, mom, dad, those, you know, we love those. Grandmother, grandpa, that's stuff that, but when we start labeling folks, giving them a title of, you know, even when we call homeless folks, yeah, they're without a home or a house, but wherever they go, I'm guessing, is their home. I mean, it may be a bridge, it may be, you know, it may be somewhere we wouldn't desire to be, or maybe they don't even desire to be there, but we've labeled them homeless. And I guess that sounds better than houseless, but, you know, at the end of the day, are they not houseless versus homeless? That even makes sense. But when we give out labels like that or titles like that, we need to be very mindful of what we're doing. You know, if we call it, look at that, what are we saying in behind the title? Look at that homeless guy over there. He could do better. Could he? Could he really? How do you know that? Why don't you go over and try to help him out? You be a helper. There's a good title. Go help that guy out. Be known as a helper to the ones who can help themselves. There's a good title. There's something to think about. I think that's something that the local churches could be really known for, is helping others, not just self.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of churches out there that have benevolence programs that give food to people that don't make a certain amount of money, but they don't. I guess it's harder to house people without having all the different. But church, I mean, even the small stuff, helping people with food, that's a good start. That's helping people.
Yes.
But there's too many churches out there that just don't want to help because they don't want us.
If you noticed when you mentioned, and I agreed with you, about it'd be very difficult to try to house people. And it would be difficult. But are we not called to do the difficult task? Not just the easy stuff? Yeah, let's go hand out some bread, or let's hand out a couple bucks. That'll help them out. Yeah, it will. Every little bit would help somebody. But let's do something difficult. What about opening up your own doors to bring some? Oh, that's too dangerous. I can't do that. Possibly. You might be exactly right. We might be down to a label of murderer in your house. You don't know. Don't know. But helping folks, boy, that'd be a great title.
But we are also, in that sense, we are also called to take care of our family first.
We are. We are. But are we called to be scared first and then helpful second? Just a question.
Called to be scared? No.
I'm saying.
We're called to be
protect.
called to be cautious first.
Again, there's your title. I called it scared. You called it cautious. Is it the same thing?
No.
No.
Cautious is looking at all the possibilities and making a decision off of that. Scared is afraid of being hurt, and just because of that, not do it. You can be cautious in looking at the person, figuring about their background, figuring out who you're allowing in your house, if at all, before you allow them in. Whereas scared is, don't even look at any of that. I don't want someone I don't know in my home at all.
What about the title, Cautiously Scared?
I don't believe that's a title.
I just made it.
Just because you make something up doesn't mean it's real.
Yep.
Candy Mountain Charlie.
So, titles are all around us. There's good ones, there's bad ones. Probably the bad ones we don't hear very much. It's probably said behind our backs.
Unless it's said about someone else.
And then we get to hear it about the other person. Isn't that funny how society works?
You rather say something about somebody behind their back or to someone else other than to their face. Yeah.
That's kind of how society works. I don't like it. But how does it look if somebody just walks up to you and just gives it to you for no reason? Because they had the idea that you were this, that, and the other, and it's probably unfounded. And then you're caught off guard and you're mad. So now it causes confrontation when they could have just said it behind your back and nobody's hurt. There's another way to look at it.
Yep.
So we're giving titles, good and bad. And hopefully the good ones, we won't run from. We already mentioned them. Some of the negative ones, I mean, if it comes to your mind and you're guilty of it, those are some things that, I don't think we need to dwell on titles so much because it could give you an ego. If you were that guy that just helped, you just helped way more than anybody. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story because we're in a hurry.
I'm listening.
So, years ago, I was in church, and there was a need, and the need was public, and they were looking around the congregation for help. And so there was a couple that volunteered to help. I'm talking about with money. And the lump sum that they were asking for, they needed more than one family to help because it was a lot of money needed. So this one family said, we'll give 2, not 1, 2, which was a lot of money. And I'm sitting there thinking, that family can't afford 1. Much less 2. So I've already got a preconceived title of this couple. And I'm thinking they can't give that. Not only did they give 1, they gave 2 smiling. They were smiling about it. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I didn't think that was possible. And here I am giving nothing. Who am I? Oh, I got this to pay and that to pay, and I can't afford to. Those people gave. And that was probably 20 plus years ago. I still remember what happened. I remember those people. I remember them giving. And in my mind, to this day, those people are cheerful givers. That's a title they got with me that day.
I mean, there are plenty of people that give out of the goodness of their heart. There are also plenty of people that act like they're trying to be cheerful givers, but they're doing it just so that people look at them.
They're not making change in the offering plate, are they?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Talking about people that, instead of giving out a large sum of money in front of
Yeah.
everybody, they will go behind the scenes and say, hey, this is what I'm giving.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a big deal. But there's people out there that want to be, hey, look at this big, huge amount of money on this big, huge check that I'm
Yep.
giving.
None of those golf check, Happy Gilmore type golf checks.
I want one of those checks one day. I don't care if it's for $1. I just want a
Just
big
want a
check.
large check. So
Take it to my bank.
take
Sorry.
it to the bank and try to cash it. Deposit it, I guess.
I want
In
to
the
cash it.
ATM. You want to cash it for $1?
Yeah.
So, the titles that were given, good and bad, and then the ones that we give to other folks, good and bad. You know, some of them, I had one wrote down here, child molester.
Chomo.
Is that what they call it? Didn't know.
I heard that on.
But you know, a lot of these websites and whatnot will show you, you know, this sex offender, child molester offender lives here in your town.
There's a difference between a sex offender and a child molester.
Well, I mean, it could be the same person.
It could be, but I'm
Let's just say, for the argument's sake, it's the same person.
but I'm just trying to say those are two different labels. A sex offender can be somebody that was walking by a park at midnight when there's never going to be any kids there and is drunk and decides to pee at the playground, and they have to be considered a sex offender.
Really?
Yeah. There's been
That sounds
studies.
kind of ridiculous.
It does sound ridiculous, but it happens. Not all that often anymore, but it does happen. Majority of the sex offenders actually have something to do with sex offenses.
So, my question, if a person is labeled whatever, and they show you on said website, this so-and-so lives at this spot, 118 Harry Way, that's
Harry.
where they live. And so that person, unless they move away from 118, maybe they move over to Scary Way,
Ooh, scary way.
how do they get away from that label, title, if you will? Because you're going to be living under that title from now on. Somebody gets on the website, there it is, 118 Harry.
Right.
There he is. So how do you get away from that? And is that right to be titled such? Why not show where the cheaters live, the liars live, adulterers live, murderers live? Why don't we show the rest of these?
Well, a lot of the times when you see child molesters, I mean, it's because they're in our society seen as the lowest of low scum of somebody that has done something, majority of the time sexually, to a kid, who is somebody that is defenseless. A child, how do I say this? A child cannot consent to anything in normal society. Children can't consent to drinking, can't consent to have sex, can't do all that kind of stuff. And those are the people,
They're being taken advantage of.
or taken advantage
Yes,
of, or forced.
in a great, great,
Where-
gigantic way.
Whereas if you cheat on somebody, majority of the time that is somebody
We talking about monopoly? Cheat? Or are we talking about adultery? It's two different things.
Okay,
I mean,
if you want to go adulterer.
adulterer. I think we ought to label them adulterers. And
Okay.
cheaters at Monopoly, cheaters.
If the reason we don't have something that shows the adulterers in your area
Yeah.
is
You
because
got to watch out for them. Watch your wife. You know, old Joe over there at 118 Harry might come over to your place and, yeah, Sally, yep, adulterated right on up.
well, if you know Sally's gonna.
Well, you don't know that. But old 118 Harry over there might be really smooth talker. Just saying, hypotheticals.
But what I'm going at is adultery is between two adults. Of
Child molesters don't have two adults
no,
involved.
that's one adult. Well, unless there's multiple, but it's
Victims.
the victim has no authority over anything, and they're being forced to do something.
How long does that person keep the title? Child molester.
Well, if it was up to me, it'd be forever.
Forever. Hmm.
But our laws in America have different, I guess it's stages. Sadly, I watched a bunch of crime shows, and one of them was like the different levels of child molesters and how they're graded and all this. Is like there are some people that have molested children that are considered what is it? They won't do it again per se, and so they might for a little bit of time.
There's a way that can be
what?
handled where they wouldn't be able to do it again.
Correct, but as of where
And
we're at
they'd have
now,
a different label.
dead.
Unique.
I like dead better. But back to what I was talking
Smoothie.
to. Back to what I was talking to. It's like certain ones that won't do it again get the non whatever label that they're not going to do it again. And so they only have to spend so much time away from kids or away from the internet or stuff like that.
Yep.
And then they go back to regular life. But then there's the other levels up to the people of, it's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And so they say, okay, we're not going to allow you for forever to be this far away from kids. You have to be like 600 feet away from kids, this far away from a school, this far. But the thing about it is that we let these people out back into the real world and expect them not to do it again.
So they're going to keep the title.
Yeah.
And so let's go with cheater. A cheater keeps the title forever?
In our society, no.
Adulterer?
No.
No?
Because there's people that have committed adultery once, never done it again, and gone on to have relationships. Are they considered?
Maybe, though, the relationship that they had adultery in is ruined, maybe. And there is someone harmed there forever on this earth. So should they not keep the title? Murderer, you would, with that thinking, would keep the title murderer forever on this earth.
So, with murderer, you have taken someone's ability to live.
Mm-hmm.
When you're an adulterer, you actually haven't even really had taken away the ability of that relationship that you were with that person.
But you've ruined something forever. It's not the same.
But a relationship and a life are two different things.
True. A child molester didn't kill the child. They molested the child. They changed that child forever.
Without that child
Child could still live.
correct.
Okay.
But that child is
Has changed.
drastically.
So has the
Not necessarily.
necessarily.
No, not necessarily. There's people that have been cheated on, and okay, you cheated on me. You didn't want to be with me, but I'm gonna go.
It don't work like that. They're affected. May not show it. They're affected. And the other person is affected. Fornicators. Are they always fornicators? Or are they just fornicators while they're fornicating?
You want to try that?
Say that three
I was gonna
times
say,
in a
you
row.
want to try that sentence again?
Do fornicators always, are they always known as fornicators? Or are they just fornicators while they are fornicating?
One more time.
Yes. So,
Okay. I mean, what would you say? Because I say
I would say there's not a title that you can't get away from. Because titles only matter to you.
no.
So,
Just like child molester. Child molester doesn't only matter to you. Okay, say
in your mind, yes.
Bob right there. He's a child molester.
I just punch Bob.
Well, Bob deserved it. He's a child molester.
Bob's on the floor now.
But Bob's title of child molester doesn't only matter to him.
But
It would also matter to me. It would matter to you. It would matter to Jim, Bill,
Bob, Joe. But at the end of the day, Mr. Bob, when he goes to bed, if he talked himself for the next 20 years, he's talked himself out of, I'm not a child molester. I was put in a position. It's not my fault. You see, in your mind, you're no longer a child molester. So in your mind, that title doesn't exist. Maybe it exists in somebody else's mind, may exist on the internet, may exist on the late local news, which I know you love. But in your mind, if you've talked yourself out of being a child molester, a father, a liar, a cheater, a stealer, fornicator, adulterer, if you've talked yourself out of it,
Not me. I'm not any. Well, I'm a father, but
if you've talked yourself out of those titles, whatever, if you've talked yourself out of it, it doesn't exist.
well, that was what I was going to before. You have these people that are fathers, but they've talked themselves out of. That's not
In
my
their
kid.
mind, they're no longer a father. But someone else can say, that's my father.
But that's. That's where titles don't. I was gonna say they don't matter, but they do matter.
They matter.
Yeah,
They don't. They should not rule your life,
No.
but they are there for a reason. Like the titles of books. You don't have to have a title on a book to read it. You can still read it. A song doesn't have to have a title to listen to it. It just helps get it to an area you can understand it.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty of books out there that the title has nothing to do with what's inside the book.
The
There's
very
plenty of
hungry
songs.
caterpillar.
There's a hungry caterpillar in that book.
Exactly. I'm saying.
But what I'm saying, there's books out there.
Without that on the cover, it's still a good read.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to have that on the front. It just helps when you go to look for it.
There's I'm going to go out. There's plenty of songs that the name has. I mean, there's a song Linkin Park did, "Faint." There's nothing about fainting in that song.
There's probably a connection somewhere.
There's probably but I'm just saying.
Maybe that's what they did when they wrote the song. Passed out.
That's not fainting. That's passing out.
Yeah.
We're not going in on
Potatoes,
this.
potatoes.
Potatoes, tomatoes.
It's all the same. It's all ball bearings. So when you use a title to label someone, just remember, there's more coming at you than leaving you most of the time.
Oh, most definitely. Because I try my best not to put labels on people.
Titles.
Titles, labels, they're the same.
The name of the show is Titles. We got to say titles, not labels.
Tittles. the head shake of disappointment. I'm used to that. My dad did that to me most of my life. I try my best not to give titles to people.
The eye roll came with the titles.
Titles or labels. I try not to give those to people just because I know people have titles or labels they want to put on me as well. And they might not be so good. And
maybe those are the ones you never hear.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
We'll try to do this again.